Hi everyone, my name's Shane, and for those who don't know me, I've been involved over the last couple of years with the mental health charity Walking Off the Wall Within, and I've done a few marathons and ultra marathons as well as other fundraising events to help raise awareness and hopefully funds for this fantastic organisation in ending the stigma surrounding mental health. I'm really proud to represent this organisation as it's a smaller charity, and it really hits home to a lot of people in emergency services and defence personnel because it was started by an ex-Australian soldier and career firefighter here in Victoria. So I thought I would this be my introduction video into how I got started in my involvement with Walking Off the Wall Within. And like a lot of things in life, it started off with as a bit of a joke. As you can see, I have really grey hair, much greyer hair than any 39-year-old really should. And a colleague of mine made a bit of a joke that I should dye my hair jet black. And I had to think about it, and I thought, you know, I will, but I want you guys to see if you can raise some money for Walking Off the Wall Within. So one trip to the hairdresser later, and a jet black rinse put through my hair, and what looked like I was having a terrible midlife crisis. I had jet black hair, and we also managed to raise some funds for Walking Off the Wall Within. So that was really my start with the organisation, and and it just sort of went from there. So to take a step back, a few months prior to this, I was not in a good way at all. So at the start of 2018, a lot of people know this, but for those who don't, I had an accident at home, and I fell off a ladder from about 3 meters up, doing something very silly, and ended up landing on my shoulder here and my neck and my head, and ended up in an ambulance off to hospital with suspected neck and spinal injuries. At the time, I won't go into exact figures, but I was in the overweight range for my height. I was leading an extremely sedentary lifestyle with no exercise, and I was drinking more than what was recommended by healthcare professionals. So physically and mentally, I was not in a good way. I was sort of bit fuzzy in the head, very little motivation, constantly fatigued, and just thought that was just sort of part of getting older, I suppose. But no, what it was just a gradual decline from where I should have been. So anyway, as I said, I ended up in hospital with a series of and was rushed straight through because of the height I'd fallen from, and just as I said, the suspected neck and spinal injuries, and put through a series of tests, put into a collar, and seen to by quite a lot of personnel at the hospital, which was really, even though I was concussed and quite groggy at the time, was quite concerning, because I really wasn't sure, and neither were they, obviously, the damage that I may or may not have done. So it was quite a nerve-wracking time. I have to give a massive shout out to Ambulance Victoria for from when it happened to when they got there to getting me to hospital. We are so blessed here to have such a professional and dedicated ambulance service in Victoria. So huge shout out to them. Thank you so much. I don't know where I'd be without you guys. So, and as you know, we work with them a bit through my line of work as well, and they're such an amazing bunch of people. So yeah. So as I said, fell off a ladder. I'm well aware of the irony surrounding that, given my line of work, and rightly so. I've been on the receiving end of a fair bit of banter regarding that, and as I should, because it was just a stupid thing that I was doing that just shouldn't have been doing. So I was standing on top of an A-frame ladder, not taking any safety precautions, which was just dumb. So during my time in the hospital, in the collar, I obviously had a bit of time on my own to reflect on what had got me to this point, and what the future may hold from here on in. And it was a bit of an awakening, bit of a I suppose you could call it a midlife crisis. If you want to label it like that, that's fine. But yeah, so anyway, later that night, after being in there all day, the surgeon came and saw me and gave me the all clear, and he also bought me a sandwich. And he said, because I hadn't eaten anything all day, and he said that given the height I'd fallen from and where I'd, and how I'd landed, he and the staff there didn't know how I hadn't done anything more serious and that I'd actually been given the all clear, which was just an amazing sense of relief. I can't describe how I don't know, just how relieved I suppose I was, because if it had gone a different way, who knows where I would have ended up. It then would have, just thrown not just my life completely upside down, but it would have, Melissa, my wife, and my two boys, Will and Angus, it just would have been just never the same again. And so yeah, it really, I don't mind admitting it really did put the wind up me. So even though the surgeon had bought me a sandwich and I was really hungry, and having been given the all clear and hadn't had the collar taken off, the only thing I wanted to do was to just take advantage of the fact that I could still walk and get up and go for a walk. And that's what I did for probably the next half an hour, just with them, their permission, obviously, just walking around the hospital, just, as I said, taking advantage of the fact that I could walk and reflecting on what had happened and how things could have changed very, very quickly for me in my life. So later that morning, I was discharged, clean bill of health. I was obviously quite concussed, and the next few days I was a bit groggy, but it did give me time to reflect on what had happened, and as I said, the series of very poor life decisions that I'd made that had got me to that point. So yeah, I just consider myself extremely lucky. So having, as I said, I decided to take full advantage of the fact that I could still walk, and knew that something had to change. So I set myself the small goal, we've all heard this before, that of getting 10,000 steps per day. So I started that, and I don't mind admitting, given the shape I was in, both physically and mentally, that was really tough. Okay, so it was exhausting. So, which may seem quite silly to a lot of people out there, and I get that. But yeah, I was absolutely exhausted trying to achieve that, and I did that by doing things like walking up the street if I had to do a little bit of shopping, or taking the dog for a walk, or walking the kids to school. Anywhere that basically I could walk practically, I did. And gradually, and over, little by little, it got easier, and I started to go for runs again, and I'd never really been a massive runner. I'd gone through fits and bursts where I'd run for a couple of months and then stop for 6 months and then start again. So I was never really a consistent thing through my life. So I built up gradually, started running a few times a week, and that just the Ks gradually increased and increased as I went, until I, ran my unofficial first half marathon just around where I live. And I really felt that was a sense of achievement. I thought, well, this is something that, I've never done before, I never even considered. So, and it was about that time that a work colleague said to me that, would you think about, and it was about 3 months out from the Melbourne Marathon in 2018, would you consider doing the Melbourne Marathon? I said, yeah, look, I suppose, but I don't know whether I've got enough time. And he assured me that I did have enough time, and because I'd had some Ks under the belt. So I started training for that and signed up for that, not really knowing what to expect. Turned up on the start line, thousands of other people, and it was just, I can't describe the experience. It was amazing. So I had an absolute ball. I managed to get under 4 hours, which was my, sort of in my head, my goal that I wanted to get. And it was tough. It was really quite hard, but loved the experience, loved the atmosphere, loved the people who ran it. It's such a supportive community, the running community, the marathon community, and just loved the whole experience. And from then on, I was absolutely hooked. So I had heard about there's different marathons in every state and territory around Australia, obviously, and I thought, why don't I try in 2019, so last year, doing a marathon in every state and territory. So I thought, well, I could get in contact with Walking Off the Wall Within again and see if I could do that to raise some money, and more importantly, awareness for their wonderful organisation and mental health and ending the stigma surrounding mental health. So I contacted them and told them of this ridiculously ludicrous plan.